pledge allegiance
To the flag.
I pledge allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
States of
and
America.
to the republic
To the
for which
republic
it stands,
for which it
one
stands,
nation, under
one
God,
nation, under
indivisible,
God,
with
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
All right. Excellent. All right. As we have done in the past for the past four budget workshops, I have allowed Brian Rosso to MC the event. So I will let Brian have the floor and
Sure.
and do
So
this. Thanks.
thanks, Councilman Moffett. So to be honest with the nonprofits, I don't get too involved from a budgeting standpoint. They put together proposals and financials. We present them to the council, and it's really more of a discussion between the nonprofits and the council. I've level funded everyone from last year, and we can kind of just get some background from the individual nonprofits and their representatives to see how you guys feel about it, if they have any requests, or if they just want to just give you a background on what they're doing in the upcoming fiscal year. That's generally how it goes. So with that being said, I'll see if the representative for Wood River Health Services is on and would like to say a couple words. Mr. Henley, I believe, has spoken in the past. I'm not sure if he's on. If anybody from Wood River Health Services is on, could you raise your hand and we can unmute you?
It'd be *9 to raise your hand, please.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we move on to the libraries? Because I see a couple of representatives for the Ashwa and Langworthy libraries. Why don't we start there and then we'll come back to Wood River, just to kind of keep the ball rolling here. So is anybody?
Sounds good. So it looks like here we have Ashwa Free Library up first.
Yeah, I believe that both the libraries usually go in tandem. They work pretty closely together. So if Langworthy, oh, there's Mr. Henley, but we'll come back to him. Is anybody from the libraries? I see Langworthy Public Library. Anybody from Ashwa, if you guys would like to speak?
I see a Heather Field with her hand up. Is Heather Field a representative from Ashwa?
Yeah, I believe so.
Good evening, Ms. Field. You should be unmuted. If you hit *6, that will unmute you and allow you to speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Field. I'm the library director at the Ashwa Free Library. And as you can see from our paperwork, we have asked for level funding this year because we understand that, just as for us, it's been a financially tough year for pretty much everyone. We haven't been able to conduct our fundraising as we normally would. And the library consortium hasn't been assessing fines on return materials, obviously, because they don't want people to have to worry about that during a public health crisis. So, but of course, we would never ask for an increase in a year like this. So yeah, we've fundraised as best as we can, and we have continued to provide library service. We've I think done a really good job, both libraries, of providing as much service as possible within the framework of how to operate safely that has been provided to us by the Rhode Island Department of Health and by the Office of Library and Information Service for Rhode Island. Where things are going really well. We've been very safe at our libraries. We have been able to provide a lot of virtual programming, which has been well received. Our circulation statistics are, for the last few months, between about 80 and 90% of what they were during the previous months before the pandemic. So our patrons have returned and they feel comfortable being with us in the building, and we still offer curbside pickup for anybody who feels safer doing that. That's actually been a hit with families with young kids because they don't have to unpack all the kids to come pick up their books and stuff. So that's fantastic. We've been doing some collaborations with Langworthy, which we spoke about a little bit last year. We did get a grant to do some programming. We did a lot of virtual programming over the summer around nature and animals and Rhode Island wildlife, which was excellent. Excuse me. Sorry, sorry about that. So yeah, everything's going really well. It's been tough, but it's been very rewarding. We've received many spontaneous just notes and comments from the public, how much they appreciate that we've kept going, and how much they value what we've provided. So that's really gratifying, especially when things have been a little bit tough, you know, especially in the early days of the pandemic, not knowing what to do, how to protect the staff and the patrons, etc. But overall, things are going really well. And as I said, we would never expect anything beyond level funding this year. We're grateful always for the council and the town's support, both financially and just in terms of showing up for us. So does anybody have any questions for me about what we're doing at Ashwa?
You know, I'm grateful and thankful for what you do. My oldest son Grayson is an avid reader and enjoys the library. So I look forward to the days where I can just, you know, drop him off and let him go in and browse around.
Councilor Hurst, I'd probably go in the Ashwa Library more than I know any council member, at least the Ashwa one. And but I want to point out to the newer councilors, as I tried to speak earlier, is that the libraries have a maintenance of effort requirement. In order to get state support, they have to receive the same amount of money from the municipality the preceding year. So there's a legal twist to their funding because of that requirement. And I just want to point that out. Thank you.
So thank you, Scott.
All right. Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Fields?
No, Brian.
I
was
just
gonna say,
wanted-
Gary. Go ahead, Sharon.
Steve, this is Sharon Davis. I just wanted to know if Langworthy is going to speak also, or if Heather was speaking for both of them.
I believe there's someone on for Langworthy. She actually just raised her
Okay.
hand as well. If we want to
Okay,
unmute her now, we could probably let them both talk in tandem and maybe speak to each other's points. But unless you want to do them separately, Steve, it's your call.
I have no problem. I will allow Langworthy, the representative from Langworthy Public Library to speak. So star 6 to unmute yourself, and then just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Nomi Haig. I'm the director of the Langworthy Library. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, great. Yeah, so I wanted to just kind of echo what Heather has said, and certainly we would be thrilled to receive level funding. We would never want to overstep in that area, particularly, you know, during this year of all years. We've been, you know, really grateful for the funding from the town and for the little fundraising that we've been able to do this year. And we are also so happy to have all of our patrons back in the library. That's been really wonderful. And hi, Sharon. It's
Hi.
nice to hear your voice. Sharon's in our book club, and we've been Zooming for a year monthly. So that's been a nice way for us to connect with each other. I just also wanted to just point out that Langworthy and Ashwa are always trying to think of ways to work together to better serve the residents of Hopkinton. We just had our 5th year of our Winter Star Reader program, where we try to bring families and young children, usually through preschool, through early elementary, to sort of build up those pre-literacy skills and have parents and older siblings model good reading habits to younger children. So summer reading is a huge draw for us, but we also like to promote something together in the winter, and it's been really well received this year in particular, I think, because of COVID and the lack of opportunities that kids have had to deal with. So that's been really great. And we are also talking about putting something together possibly with the land trust. I hope I'm not speaking too soon about this, but we have been meeting to think of a way to bring a story walk to the town of Hopkinton, and that's a literacy based outdoor experience for children and families. It's a great way to promote literacy, physical fitness, a love of nature. So we are hoping if all of our funding and our plans come into place at the same time, if everything aligns perfectly, then we hope to have something for the town before the end of the fiscal year. And if that doesn't work out, we will regroup and think of something else to do together, because I think that collaborating is a really great way to serve this community. And I think COVID has really made us realize that we can be stronger when we do things as a team in that way. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Steve?
Yes, Sharon.
Steve? I just wanted to
Yes,
to
go ahead,
say
Sharon.
that, hi, this is Sharon Davis. I just wanted to say that as a member of the Langworthy Library Book Club, it has been a wonderful way to meet and talk to people, to the ladies who are interested in the book club, and we've had a wonderful time Zooming together. So I just think that at least for the Langworthy Langworthy Library, and I'm sure with the Ashway too, there are a lot of programs, a lot of ways that they have tried to interface with the communities and provide service to the communities. I think both the organizations are very good and are worth funding again. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. President, Council.
Thank you, Sharon.
I'd like to express thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
For both what libraries do and how they affect community, and especially during this crisis this last year. I'd like to say thank you for what you do.
Okay, all right. If anybody has any other questions, if not, we'll.
No, I'm in, just to state, I am in complete agreement with meeting their request.
Yeah, Bob Marvel here. I
So I just wanted
agree.
to state that as well.
I definitely, I definitely support continued funding of both libraries.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out and speaking with the council and answering any questions they had.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Okay, Steve, I see Mr. Henley on for Wood River.
Excellent.
Maybe we could come back and do Wood River, see if he has a few words for the council.
Sounds good.
Mr. Henley.
Mr. Henley, I'm going to allow you to speak. If you would just hit star 6, that will allow you to talk.
Okay, do you have me now?
You do. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty getting here, but I'm glad to see you all, see everybody's getting through this pandemic. And Allison Croak has asked me to apologize for not being able to make it. She planned on being here and a last minute family situation came up. So you got me instead. I, of course, first want to start off with thank you very much for the support that Hopkinton has always given us in the past. Clearly, this year has been different than any other year that we've ever been through. And I know that's just as true for the town as it is for the health center. Excuse me. We've been working just as hard as we can to meet the community's needs throughout the pandemic. As most of you know, we early on put up a testing tent. We locked down the building so that we could institute all of the restrictions that were needed at the time, and we continue to do so. We have since then put in a mobile unit so that we could continue testing and now vaccinating in relative comfort without patients coming into the building, although we are vaccinating inside the building also. We were able to meet the timelines that the state's laid out for the different phases of the vaccinations. We're now working on our 65-year-olds. We will be ready for the 60 to 65s and the complicating conditions populations when the time comes. We are now using all 3 vaccines. Unfortunately, the supply is kind of random, as you know, so we're not able to let our patients pick and choose which vaccine they're going to get, but they're going to get something, and that's the important thing. In the coming up for the foreseeable future, we'll be dealing with that, of course. We have the Westerly site is open again. Our community resource team is back in full swing. Our behavioral therapists are primarily meeting their patients on video, but that's all we can do for now. That's all we can do, but hopefully we'll be able to get those folks in person before much longer. And we have re-outfitted the dental operatories with special air purifiers, and the staff has all the specialized equipment that the federal guidelines have called for the health centers. It's a little more stringent than the private dentists have had to do, but from our point of view, that's all for the better. We are closing in on getting our new operatory finished and open any day now. That needed a whole redesign in the middle of things because of the new equipment that had to be put in. But we're ready to go on that. And as soon as possible, we are good to go, full bore ahead. As you're very aware, we asked for an increase this year. Clearly, that's all related to what I've been talking about. The increase in cost and the drop off in revenue last year hurt us pretty badly. And we are simply seeking some assistance getting through that. And I would be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I'm Councilman Hurst. I'm a little reluctant, and I go to Wood River Health Services, but I'm a little reluctant increasing that amount because I'm personally of the mindset at the present time, and I'll see if somebody can sway me, that we should freeze all the nonprofits. Wood River does have the benefit. I know you have a sliding scale, but you can charge insurance. I know the pandemic is impacting everybody, but usually I know some of the vaccine, as I understand it, is being donated by the state or other sources. So and I plan to get my shot probably up there. But I would say that what happens if we only give you the 10 grand, which I would like to do? That's what you normally get.
We would be certainly grateful for that. And we would find ways to get whatever we need to do done. I'd just like to, you're absolutely right. The vaccine comes paid for. Much of our specialized activity around COVID has we've had funding federally to assist with that. And even and as a normal part of operations, our paying customers, if you will, take care of a good part of our budget, obviously. What the way the health center is set up is the charitable, if you will, part of the budget takes care of many of the things that we do not charge for. The community resource people, the WIC, the nutritionists, the special outreach that we do. There are a half dozen programs for which we do not even charge, and they're specifically targeted at the less fortunate, the higher need individuals in the community. So that's really where our subsidy line is. That's what we fundraise for. That's what we write grants for. You're absolutely right. The rest of the operation runs just like a private doctor's office.
think
But
what has
that's, sorry, go ahead.
What has to be taken in consideration, and I think Councilor Gary, people in Hopkinton have various income levels, and if they're a property taxpayer, they have concerns to pay their taxes, and they're impacted by their household income to pay for heat in their house, food, maintaining their homes if they own one, things of that nature. So we have not only, you know, the concern that you would have with the income of people, but people in Hopkinton have various income levels. I mean, some people, property taxes is not really a big concern with them because they can easily meet a property tax bill, but not all people in Hopkinton have that advantage. And in Wood River Health Services is very good. I go there myself, but I mean, what I think people want us to do is pretty much hold the reins on spending in this town. And people have been reduced in their income. And even if they get a stimulus check, that stimulus check doesn't go that far. They have to pay for heating oil, or they have to pay for their property taxes or maintaining their car, or the basic things that the people normally do. It's just one perspective. Thank you.
That's absolutely fair enough. And like I said, we're perfectly happy with our status quo, our you know, level funding. It's just if there was an ability to help, we would have appreciated that help also. But certainly we're not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire in this day and age. We're perfectly happy with level funding. It's just if you don't ask, you don't get.
Well, I mean, if I didn't believe in Wood River Health Services, I wouldn't go there. So, I mean, that's my personal endorsement, but people in Hopkinton are really stressed financially. I'm not a wealthy guy myself, and people want the town council to be fiscally prudent, especially under the times we live under. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mr. Henley, did you, this is Councilor Moffett. Did you have anything else to add? I wasn't sure if Councilor Hurst had kind of just kind of asked you a question in the middle of what you were saying.
Oh, no,
I just wanted to.
I'm sorry. I just talked over you now. No, I was finished. I had opened the floor.
Excellent. Well, this is Councilor Moffett. I'd like to thank you and everyone else at the Wood River Health Services for what they do there. I'm in agreement with Scott as far as level funding. Our contribution this year, due to circumstances that obviously are out of all of our control. That's kind of going to be the, I mean, for the most part, the theme of what we do this year. But my family has been a long time users of the Wood River Health Services, and I just want to thank you for what it's done there.
Thank you.
Council Moffett, Council Geary, can I say a word?
Absolutely. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Mr. Hanley, Council Geary, I would just like to pass on our sympathy for your loss of a great man, a great doctor, a very, very respected doctor in our community, and Dr. Bergeron. He was a patient of his for almost 16 years, and I'm sure he will be missed. I thank you for the work you guys do, and the staff continues on in his work. Thank you.
Counselor Hurst,
Thank you.
again, Counselor Hurst, again, I want to point out that Dr. Bergeron was my doctor, and I think he was around my age, but I'm 67. But he had a unique personality, and I went to him for a while, and he certainly be missed in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, he was quite a guy, and he's very sorely missed.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Bob, you're on mute.
Yep, I am. Bob Marvel here. I just want to kind of echo what everyone else has said. Just great services that you guys provide to the community. But with things tight as they are, I think I would agree that level funding is probably the most prudent thing this time around.
Fair enough.
All right, if that's all the council has for Mr. Henley. I think it seems like,
Brian,
yep.
I just wanted to know who fills out the grant and contributions request form. Do you fill that out, or does the applicant fill that out?
The applicants.
Okay, because on that form, the amount requested is 10,000, but the
Yeah.
cover letter says 20. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Oh, I'm sorry. That would have been me.
Okay. And it says 10 down below in the middle too, so just letting you know.
Oh.
Okay,
We
thank you.
we did have kind of a back and forth conversation about whether we should even ask for more this year because of exactly the problems that you folks are citing. But like I said, the final decision was that if we didn't request, then we definitely weren't going to get it. So we're looking for all the help we can get, but if you can't do it, then you can't do it. That's all there is to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hanley, for being here.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thanks.
You too, sir.
All right, so up next is Hope Valley Ambulance. I believe it's Alicia Fox. I see her on. If we could unmute her and let her give us some background information, maybe answer some questions for the council.
Hi, everybody. Actually, Alyssa Fox, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
no worries. It's a common thing. I'm so used to it. At least you started with an A. I'm so used to Melissa, so we're good. So again, I am Alyssa Fox. I am the treasurer for Hope Valley Ambulance. I have taken on the task this year of filling in Titch's footsteps. His big shoes, still trying to fill them, still trying to figure everything out. Titch was finally able to retire after 30 something years as the treasurer for Hope Valley Ambulance. So him and his wife have actually both stepped back. So here I am. This year we did go along with the theme of Wood River as well to ask for more funding due to the pandemic and our increased costs. But again, same thing, can't ask. If you don't ask, then you won't get. We knew that the worst that you guys could say was no. Understandable. For the most part, I mean, things have been okay. Our call volume definitely was a lot lower, especially when the pandemic first hit. About obviously a year now, we nobody wanted to call the ambulance. Nobody wanted to go to the hospital. Everybody was kind of afraid. But we were here and we had our crews. We do have staff members 24/7 that are either at the building or within call. Everybody has to be pretty much within 5 minutes or so. The trucks are getting out, and I mean, like I said, I'm just kind of navigating the waters that Titch kind of left. Does the town have any questions for me?
Council Moffett.
I
Council-
do.
I do.
Steve?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hold on 1 second here. We'll, Sharon, we'll go Sharon, Council Geary, and then Council Hurst. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Sharon Davis. I was looking at your financials, and the profit and loss
Yes.
says January through December 2021.
Oh,
Is that really 21 or is that 20?
That was this is the profit and loss budget for 2021 that I have. You should have. That was the
Okay.
budget the budget that we approved. We approve our budget in December. So that was
Okay.
approved prior to the request being submitted. So that's why it's for this current year.
All right. And the grants that you have at 115,000, how much of that is that where the Hopkinton funding is on that line?
It's Hopkinton as well as Richmond on that line.
Thank you.
And then we did receive, I believe, I don't have that, the other 10,000, that I do know what that is. That was a, okay, now I'm blanking. No, I'm sorry. We received a 10,000, from the SBA in the beginning of this year. So that got included in the beginning of last year, I apologize, during the pandemic. We received a $10,000 grant from the SBA. So that's the,
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
not a problem. Thank you.
Excellent. Council Geary.
Thank you, Council Moffett. Alyssa, hey, Council Geary, two things. You said you got you got crews 24/7.
We do.
Did you have part-time crews?
We do have volunteers. We do have some paid members. That is where most of our expenses actually do go, is to pay our response stipend, which is our salary for our members. And then we do have some volunteers that trickle in to fill those other trucks. Say the crew is on a first call. We may have a couple people that we may have 3 or 4 people that go on the call, only 2 will transport. So then we do have another couple people that'll stay back in town to take in a second call. We do have volunteers as well that kind of have their radios on, myself being included, that if something comes in, I can hear that they're toning out, they're not getting a crew or truck out. If I can go and hop on the truck, and there's a couple others that do that as well.
Okay, thank you. One last question. A fully qualified EMT that's on a daytime staff, what is his hourly wages?
Right now, unfortunately, we are below our actual occupational standard. I do have to give it to our incentive members. They do, they aren't there for the majority of the money because they could be making elsewhere between private ambulances and other places. Currently, our ALS, which is our advanced life support, is making $15 an hour, if I'm correct off the top of my head, and our BLS is making $13 an hour. As a cardiac provider, when I left as a private ambulance, I was making close to $18 an hour. With my experience and everything else, I haven't been a paid EMT in quite some time, but a couple years. but our people are there. And like I said, they're not there for the money. I mean, a little bit helps. It is considered, we call it our incentive program, just to kind of, hey, you're here hanging out at the building all day. We'll give you a little bit. But it's by no means a full-time career, make a living off of.
All right, thank you. And I thank you for what you and the staff do there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Moffett.
Welcome. Council Hurst, did you have a question?
Yes, I actually had an ambulance ride, but it was Hyanna Loan land in January. I think it's important to point out that Hope Valley takes in all of Richmond and only the northern part of Hopkinton. My concern is I'm approaching this budget essentially level funded. People are really stressed. I know the ambulance does get some income, maybe not as much as they want from insurance payments and things of that nature. You're asking for, both the ambulances are asking for 52,000. What's the $2,000 if we don't give it to you? Because I'm approaching this budget essentially as I like to level fund it.
Right.
And 2,000 is not a lot of money, but it could be used to plug a hole somewhere else. And also, as a member of the council, I have to realize that we're going to be negotiating contracts with town employees, and I don't know where that's going to go. And usually it's up. So the town's also got to take into consideration that we're going to have some expenses in the future. And and I also realize that the Ashwa Ambulance, they get also support from the Ashwa Fire District. I do have a question for you. Does Hope Valley Ambulance get any financial support from any fire district?
We do not.
Okay.
Our income comes directly from our billing, which again, because of the call volume being down, we don't have, the calls to bill for, as well as we are facing, obviously we send out the bills, people aren't paying them, they do go to collections, things like that. We do, the other part of our income for the year is our memberships. As I'm sure you guys have seen, we sent out a letter that kind of did explain that we are separate. That actually has come up a lot on the back of the trucks. We go to take somebody and they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like they're talking and they don't even, the town doesn't even realize that the Hope Valley Ambulance is completely separate. That we don't get anything from the fire districts. And then the other part of our income is from the towns. We did ask, we had been at level funding for 50,000 for quite some time. I know that a few years back, Titch had actually requested 52. If I remember correctly, again, this is all me getting third-party information, that it was approved, but the municipal budget was not there. And then kind of we've just been level with that, going along with that, understanding obviously with the municipal budget, it needed to be there first. Which is again with the increase, and we understand that the town obviously has so much because of the municipal budget. So yes, the 2,000 is minimal, but even again, to plug a hole that could help pay for that increase in the PPE, the gowns, the gloves, the masks, on top of that as well. So again, every little bit.
Councilor Hurst again, I think it's very important to realize that usually, historically, the Charahoe budget has a couple of bites at the apple, depending upon how that budget goes. And usually the Hopkinton town budget is voted on, I think it's the second Tuesday in June. I could be wrong, but it's certainly in June. And Hopkinton doesn't have the flexibility, and the way Hopkinton, depending upon what the voters do in June, it reverts back to the previous year's budget. So depending upon how people feel in town, I don't even know what the next budget's going to be. That even this council will decide on a budget, but it doesn't mean the voters are going to approve it because that's how they feel. So, but I think that's important to realize, and that's all I have to say. But I think a lot of times people don't take all this into consideration. Sometimes it's very tough to predict what's going to happen budget-wise, but I'm sitting here knowing past history, knowing that budgets have been rejected in town, and also knowing that we have contractual concerns coming up and negotiating with the bargaining units in town. So that's on my mind. Thank you.
This is Counselor Moffitt. Listen, I have one question. Can you describe your membership income and what that is and what a membership is? And
Absolutely. So what our membership is you sign up for a membership based on the different tier base, then you call the ambulance.
Sure.
If you don't have a membership, it doesn't mean the ambulance is not coming. No matter what, the ambulance will come to you, whether you are a member of our ambulance or not. If you're in the next town over, we have mutual aid agreements. They don't have a rescue available, we'll go there as well. So if you are a member, you call the ambulance. We will bill your insurance for that ride. However, the copay that your insurance would then bill for you is waived.
excellent.
It
Can
does
you?
cover if somebody isn't uninsured. It does cover that they would have that, but we would then waive that if they are a member. We're looking to take care of our Hopkinton
Excellent.
residents.
Thank you. So, so with that being said, sure. So with that being said, I see that it's $48,000. Do you have like a number? Like, do you know how many members you have? I mean, I'm just curious.
Off the top of my head, I don't. I can.
Well, do you know what a typical membership cost is, or is it? I mean, what's
It's a
the
flex.
tiers? I'm just.
I don't have the new tiers. I don't have my membership right in front of me. We did do a senior level that was $50. We did increase our normal individual family membership to $75. And that's from, it was
Okay.
$55 last year. We did
Okay.
go up a little bit due to the pandemic. And then as you add dependents, it was $5 per dependent.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you very much for answering that question for me. I appreciate it.
We do also cover businesses in town for a 200
Okay.
or a little bit higher. I believe we might have gone up a little bit more. I don't, again, off the top of my head, don't have that flyer. But that covers if a business calls 911 for one of their employees, that employee obviously would not be might not be a resident of the town, but we would then waive their copay because their employer paid for that.
Excellent. And then I have one last question. What can you tell me? So other than Ashway and Hope Valley Ambulance, what are the other ambulances in the Tri-Town area? I know Wesley will go into Hopkinton, obviously Charlestown if need be. But are there any other ambulance services?
Absolutely. We are completely surrounded, actually. We have Exeter comes in, West Greenwich Rescue 2, which is right up off of 102 at exit 5 comes in a lot because they're able to get right on the highway and come straight down.
Sure.
South Kingstown will come in if it's over towards the Richmond line there. And then again, Westerly if we need be. Bill, unfortunately here, High and Lowland. So it must have been that was West Greenwich's next option for them, a little bit further out. And I've done work with Voluntown at the Connecticut line because we do cover all the way down 138 to the Connecticut line. That's pretty much it.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Are there any more questions or comments?
Yeah, Bob Marvel here. I actually have a comment for Brian or a question for Brian. On this chart here on page 50 of the book, where we show the fiscal year 21-22 budget numbers, is that what we're considering level funding? Because it's the same as last year's
Correct.
budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Because I think there might have been a little bit of confusion because both Ashway and Hope Valley Ambulance were asking a little bit more than 52,000. But I think there was a little confusion over what level funded was. So if we're considering 52,000 for each as level funding, I think we should be clear on that. And I support that level funding. That's all.
Councilor Moffitt, Councilor Geary, I concur with Councilor Marvel.
Councilor Moffett, also, I'm in agreement with Councilor Geary and Marvel that that level funding is absolutely for Hope Valley ambulance is a direction I would like.
Understandable.
Any other questions or comments? All right, not hearing any. Alyssa, thank you very much
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
for coming, and let me thank you. Thanks.
All right, so next up is Ashway Ambulance, and it's Eric Perrin, I believe, is on here for Ashway Ambulance. I think I see his name. I believe he's going to be the one representing Ashway Ambulance.
Excellent. Oh, hold on. Okay, Mr. Perrin. Are you there? I think hold on. Yes, he is. I see him. There you are. If you could just unmute yourself, sir, that. Or maybe I can unmute you. Hold on.
Here we go.
Excellent.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening, Mr. Perrin. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
Good, thanks. Do you want to just give some general information on the current status of the Ashway Ambulance, and then maybe the council can have some questions for you?
Most certainly. Again, we have asked for funding of 52,000 again this year. I would love it to be more based on the needs of the organization and the town now. If I may share a couple of numbers with you to, I guess, educate what goes on with insurances now. I believe Scott Bill asked a question about insurance premiums a short while ago.
Sure, go ahead.
So we recently did an ALS transport to Rhode Island Hospital, and our billing company billed the patient for $4,300. Our ambulance corps received a payment of $124.82 for that run. So this is what we're into weekly, daily. If the patient had met the deductible, the insurance company would have paid us $1,300. Again, less than a third of what we billed out for. And I'm not speaking just for myself, I'm speaking for all volunteer ambulance corps in the area. This is what we face every day. So that's why it's become more and more difficult to cover salaries and equipment, et cetera. And on top of that, I just recently had to purchase a specialty needle. It's an intravenous needle that goes into the bone called an IO needle. I had to buy 3 boxes, 3 different sizes, and you have to buy 5 of each. That's how they're packed. If I was to buy them directly from the company, it would have cost the ambulance corps $4,500. Now we need to meet this because it's a state mandate. Our ambulances don't pass inspection without them. I was fortunate enough to spend several hours with another member of our organization, and we were able to purchase them on eBay for $1,500. So this is what we do day in and day out, is we try to provide the necessary equipment with limited funding. I would love for the town to be able to provide $75,000 or $80,000 a year instead of 52. again, as the department grows or we try to expand staffing, without that necessary funding, we just can't. Thank you.
All right, did any of the council members have questions for Mr. Perrin?
Yeah, yeah, Brian. Hey, Mr. Perrin, Council Geary here. How many members do you have in the association?
Members active or membership total?
Membership total.
Probably around 24 to 30 members now.
And you run what? Two fully qualified crews 24/7 or?
No,
Okay.
we run a two-man crew, first shift. And then second shift, we run a one-man crew in hopes to backfill with volunteers.
All right. In what year are your two ambulances?
2005 and a 2011.
So they're pretty much depreciated.
Most certainly. We just spent, oh my gosh, $27,000 or $28,000 rebuilding a motor in one of them this past year.
Mr. Perrin, is there any money out there, COVID world, in the COVID SPD, the PPD money or anything like that?
So
We could have gotten a hold of or did get a hold of?
yes, so I did get one PP grant for $29,500 that basically had to cover, I want to say around 75% of it had to go toward payroll. And I also took in an SBA EIDL loan this year for about $97,000, which will be used for infrastructure.
Can you be a little bit more specific with infrastructure?
We need to re-side and re-roof our building that's 30 years past, well, it's 30 years old. I need new windows, doors, roofing, siding on the building, or we're not going to have a building to store our ambulances in.
If I was to all of a sudden show up your door and say, hey, I want to be an EMT, take me through from step one, cost, education, before I even get a certificate.
A cost now is probably well over $2,000 to become an EMT now, and about 150 hours of your time. And then it's a state test after that.
The biggest fear I think all ambulances have is ambulance crews go through this, is people get qualified, then they see an opening somewhere else where it's double the money that we are either paying Ashway and or Hope Valley, correct?
I'm facing that. I faced that this past week. I'm looking to bring in a few new members to our staff, and they say, well, what are you paying? And they say, no, thank you. We cannot compete with the bigger operations based on pay. I mean, when you can, it's like, well, we're going to pay you $15 an hour and someone can go somewhere for $20 or $24 an hour. There's a huge disparity there. We don't offer, vacation time. We just can't. We're I use the term, the last of the Mohegans, so to speak. There's only several organizations that exist like us, and Ashway is the smallest of the four.
All right. Then you are asking for how much more this year?
Well, we asked for 52, which I believe was level funding from last year. Where I'm at now is I've reached out to the fire district and I'm looking to the council is to close our salary gap. In other words, we went from under $100,000 a few years ago. In 2019, our payroll went to I'm just trying to pull the numbers, about $119,000. Last year in 2020, our salary levels went to $130,000. So receiving $50,000 or $52,000 from the town of Hopkinton, which we appreciate, and then $50,000 from the fire district doesn't cover payroll. So we have really nothing left to, to purchase a new ambulance, to purchase a new life pack, to purchase anything, even to cover these, what I call unfunded mandates from the state. The state gives us no money to purchase equipment.
Have you, Counselor Hurst, have you contacted any of the state legislators for legislative grants?
We receive 2 legislative grants annually at this time. The past, for as long as I can remember, we received a representative grant and a Senate grant. One's for $2,000 and one's for $3,000, which we usually put toward buying medical equipment or paying down medical equipment. For instance, a life pack defibrillator goes to the tune of about $35,000 now for one. So we're trying to pay down the one we have now with that grant money, and then hopefully we can take out a loan to purchase another one.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I'm sure you'd be pleased, Eric. I did make a motion to adjourn in honor of 3 people at the last council meeting. Linda Holman was one of them. I know she was a big supporter of the ambulance corps during her lifetime, and I just wanted to point out.
I did read that.
As well, you're welcome, and also an officer of the Ashway Fire District. You're welcome.
Brian, Councilor Geary, is it feasible to help Eric out with his requests? If, I don't know, I'd like to hear, of course, I'd like to hear from the other counselors.
Yeah, I think it's a council decision. I mean, if you guys decide to do it, that's your call. Is it feasible? I mean, yeah, I mean, we could always, it would just be another penny to the tax rate, essentially.
The problem with that is that, which I know I've approached this budget, I want to make it as level funded as possible because people are really stressed financially and people don't have the financial wherewithal. And we just had the Hope Valley ambulance. We're talking about giving them 50 grand, and then we would give Ashway 2,000 more. So there looks like an inconsistency there too. So I think the council has to reflect upon that. I think it's probably best to keep it at the same, and when we complete the budget, we can go back and make changes depending upon what the tax rate is and things of that nature, but it's up to the council.
Mr. Perrin, thank you for being here, first of all. Next, do you have a membership service just like the Hope Valley Ambulance does? Is that
we used to?
Is that something you offer? You used to. Okay.
We used to. Several years ago, we approached the fire district for, basically it was set up as a grant the same way the town of Hopkinton grants the ambulance money. So it's unguaranteed money, which is very difficult to write a budget around, obviously. And we decided at that time that the fire district was going to give us $50,000. And at the time, the subscription program we had was bringing us in around $20,000. So we felt it not appropriate to ask to tax somebody through fire district funding and then ask for more money on top of that. So we stopped that program. And in the past several years, we've actually sent out a letter stating that you're all subscribers. The subscription program was great years and years ago. People were much more involved, and I'll use the term more giving. And it could be for a lot of reasons, but most people just don't understand the background now of how this operates. We don't receive any money from anybody else other than billing. And like Alyssa said from Old Valley Ambulance, the runs at the beginning of this year, or this past fiscal year, so to speak, were way down. People just weren't calling the ambulance. So when run volume's down, that affects the bottom line.
Sure. Okay, thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Do any other councils have any other questions?
Yeah, this is Bob Marvel. Again, looking at the chart, it looks to me that level funding for both ambulance corps is at 52,000 this year. Is that what we're considering to be level funding? I support that. I just want to clear up any confusion that other counselors may have.
I thank you for that, and I was looking at the wrong column, so 52,000 would be acceptable to me, because that's the 2021 budget, and I'd support the 52,000. Thank you.
And this is Counselor Moffett. I too would support the level funding at $52,000. Sharon, do you have any questions or comments or anything?
I support the level funding of 52,000. I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, did you have anything else to add, Mr. Perrin, or
No,
any questions or concerns or anything?
I thank the council for their time, and I hope my goal has been for several years is to, I don't use the term lightly, educate the public on what the ambulance corps in this area go through. And we would welcome any ideas as to how to increase revenue. Obviously, billing is great, but as you can see, as I explained about the insurance companies are destroying us. When, it's like, when's the last time you could go to a restaurant and say, well, I ordered a $40 meal, but I'm only going to pay $2 on that. And that's what we need to figure out. And I'm working every day to try to come up with another solution. So if anyone has any ideas, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Scott Hurst, just an observation. I know that the Ashway Emergency Services usually have a booth at Washington County Fair, and since the fair didn't take place last year, I'm sure that was a blow to the emergency services because they must have made some good money at the fair.
Well, Scott, those are great things to do, but at the end of the day, you spend a lot of time and you make $3,000 or $4,000 by the time you're done. And unfortunately, it takes so much manpower. And when you are asking people to invest hours of their weeks and days and nights away from family to run an ambulance, to ask them to do that on top of it is becoming increasingly difficult as years have gone on.
So, well, thank you very much, Mr. Perrin. I appreciate it. And if you could thank everybody, all your volunteers and your employees for me, or the council, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I will certainly do so. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Michael.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. So real quick, Councilman Marvel, what was the question you had on the level funding? I'm not quite following you where the confusion comes in.
So the confusion, I think, came when Councilor Hurst was mentioning 50,000 as level funding.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
I was looking at that as being something that was funded 2 years ago.
Yeah, my apologies. I looked at the wrong column, so hit me with a wet noodle.
No worries. I just want to make sure I was getting it straight.
Hey, I want to make sure it wasn't like a budget document issue. All right, so next up would be the land trust. If Marilyn, I see Marilyn Grant's on there. If we could give her a minute to speak, and if the council has any questions for her, and then if anybody else has any questions for her, we can address those as well. Steve, would you be able to unmute Marilyn?
I would. Hold on one second. Let me just get my ducks in a row here for a minute. All right. Marilyn, you are unmuted. Marilyn, are you there? Star 6 to unmute yourself.
All right, is that it?
It is. Thank you, Marilyn.
All right, great. Well, I already talked with the council once before. And I understand there have been a number of questions that, Brian said that he has fielded some of them, and I communicated with Bob Marvel, who is our liaison. So I'm listen for questions and see what we can do.
Sure. Bob, do you have questions or answers to share, or would you like me to start? Bob, you're muted again.
I think that the biggest question was with regard to the money that's coming into the land trust from the Southern Sky Solar as an easement for their property. That's been funded, or that comes in at 20,000 a year. It looks like it started in 2019. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Her-
And I think that,
Might have been
you know,
2000.
I'm sorry.
It might have been it might have been just last year was the first year.
Okay. All right. And we fund land trust at 15,000 each year. Brian, do you know how far back that goes at that level?
Sure. I believe last year was 10,000. Prior to that, it was 15,000 for a couple years. I'd have to go back and review, just because the way it's set up, it's in the CIP. I could certainly, if you wanted to give me a minute, I could go back and look through some documents and see how long back that goes. But to my knowledge, off the top of my head, it was 10,000 last year. And then I know it was 15,000 in I think at least the prior 2 years. But I can certainly go back and get the history of those payments.
Yeah, I think we should have, Counselor Hurst, I think we should have more of the facts on the land trust, because I think there was a concern. They do have income from other areas. And I think we should have a complete picture financially where the money is coming from. Because I think that's why it dropped down to 10,000 that year, if I remember correctly.
I believe that it was the council did decide based on the solar revenue, if I remember correctly, that was the justification for them reducing it from 15 to 10. That's my recollection. If there's anything else as far as getting the picture that you're, I guess I could, I'm not sure what financial information you're looking for. But
anything that can clarify the financial situation that I don't have certainly. And it's what type of income are we getting from solar this or estimated from 21, 22? What would be the estimated revenue?
For the land trust?
Yeah, or from solar revenue.
But not the town. How much is the land trust getting from solar?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So also, I meant the town, but it'd be good to have both numbers.
Okay, well, we'll address the solar revenue in building and zoning revenue. But for the land trust purposes, I think the only thing that's really pertinent is what they're taking in for revenue at this point in time. And I think it's probably helpful if the council could reference the budget that was provided by the land trust the last time they came on, because they broke down the expenses and the revenue. I mean, I could try to open that up and maybe screen share it with you if you don't have it available, but they did give us a breakdown of all their projections.
Brian, if you could screen share that with us, that'd be great. Because I just have a couple questions looking at the booklet here. And it's, I mean, obviously I'm looking at the CIP here, plan for 21, 22. And I see that there's 24 in. And again, some of this is for clarity, like Scott said, it's to get a better financial picture of what's happening. Again, you know, I mean, as we all know, participation in town can be low sometimes, so there's not a lot of information shared amongst people. So, and there's 3 new counselors on this board. So, I just, after going through some things, there's just some answers I'm looking for, just so I know. I mean, things that I should know. And, for one, I see, again, 24th, I see there's 2 bank accounts. I mean, I'm not sure there was any explanation before. And if there was, I apologize for either forgetting or not being able to read my notes properly. But I noticed that the citizens account has $24,791 in their account as of December 31st, 2020. I also know that there's a Webster account that it doesn't list what the value of that account is. So I guess my question is for the counselors and anybody in the audience here, if they're listening, is what each account serves a purpose for. What does the citizens account serve a purpose for, and what does the Webster bank account serve a purpose for, and what the balance in the Webster account is?
Would you like me to address that, or would you like Marilyn?
Whoever
I'll do
could best
do the
answer
best
that
I
question.
can. The
Sure.
the citizens account is, we call it like our operating or stewardship account. And this is where the money from the solar comes in. And that is an agreement that was reached. I think I explained that last time. And it's going to be the same every year. That is not dependent on how much they're producing or anything else. That's 20,000. The other money comes from the revenue, what is it called? The real estate transfer tax, which goes to the town clerk. And then I think it was in 2015 or 16 that the council voted to provide 25% of that up to a total of 15,000. And that's been fairly consistent except for last year and possibly one other year. We have 2 other sources of income, which are leases, agricultural leases to farmers to grow hay and corn, and a small endowment that was established many years ago by one of our trustees at the Rhode Island Foundation. And that pays us approximately $750 a year currently. That's the citizens account. Any expenses from that, we submit to the finance office, and they take care of writing the checks and paying. The Webster account, I think Brian's probably gonna have a little better explanation of that. It is basically bond money that was voted by town at a town referendum for purchase of land and directly related expenses to acquiring land and protecting land through purchase or easements.
So Marilyn, I think to simplify things, the Webster funds are just 100% have to be used. They're restricted funds. They have to be used for land purchases. So it's that money was funded through the bond, which was issued in 2019. And it was authorized by voters back in, I want to say like 2009 for $2 million. And, there's a long backstory on how that money, was spent on several purchases over the course of, 12 years now. And we've kind of done a couple accounting things here and there to try to save the town money, as far as borrowing it from restricted accounts for the town hall expansion. We borrowed money from there instead of going to bond to try to save money. But all that kind of isn't, I don't think, unless you want to know the backstory, I'm more than happy to tell you. But I think as far as explaining the difference in the two accounts, the Webster account is solely for the purchase of open space. That was approved by voters. It was issued through a bond. So by both of those things govern exactly what that has to be spent on. In the bond disclosure, it has to be used for open space because that's what was approved by voters. So that money is what we call restricted. The citizens account was unrestricted, and that can be used for whatever the land trust feels they need operations. It can be used for anything. It's unrestricted. So they have discretion over what they spend that on.
So I have a question as far as the restricted account. Land purchase, does that include like closing costs on properties and all that stuff too? Or is that
Closing
like
costs.
a different fee? You can use the, okay.
Correct. Yep.
And then
Yep.
obviously the citizens account is for, like you said, administrative type of stuff, any type of work that needs to be done, maintenance, mowing, stuff like that.
Yeah, anything really. They have discretion over that.
Okay, and just this is a question for Marilyn. Marilyn, and this is just for my information and anyone else who cares to know. But I mean, this may or may not be the place to ask, but I was just curious as to what kind of what process does the land trust go through in deciding which parcels that they purchase? Do you have ones that you like have that you have your eye on and kind of decide that way, or is there, because there's certain features to it? Or
You're
something?
asking about land protection?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we have, we actually have a rubric that we use, and we score properties based on the number of homes that could be built there that are not going to go in and increase taxes, whether it abuts other protected land, scenic values, environmental values, historic sites, protecting water, you know, like the rivers and streams in town. All of those, we can score those. The current project that we're working on has been on our list of interest for close to 20 years. But we then need landowners who are willing to work with us.
Sure. Excellent. Do any other council members have any questions or comments or anything?
Yeah, Bob Marvel here. I'm looking at the 3-year expense and income report, and two questions on that. So for the Southern Sky Solar, I see for fiscal year 2021, the budget amount is $20,000, but the year-to-date actual is 0. Does that mean we just haven't received any money from them yet? Are we expecting to?
Right. The agreement that that was drawn up provided for this amount to be paid by June 30th of each year. So it comes in at the very end of 1 year and essentially applies to the next.
Okay. All right, good. So we are still expecting that. My other question is, right below that, there was another entry for Atlantic Solar that was on the fiscal year 1920 budget. The budget number was $20,000, but the actual was 0, and it's been 0 since then. Can you give me kind of the backstory of that?
That was a one-time donation that was part of discussions when the then town council was working with that solar company to get an approval.
So Marilyn, I think.
That answer your question?
I think the question is, why is it in the budget column and not the actual column? Is that a mistake? Because it was my understanding from speaking with you the last time that 20,000 was not budgeted, but it was received.
Okay.
Is that
That's
accurate?
right.
Yeah. Okay. So
yes, my
I think
mistake, wrong column.
Yep.
That's,
okay.
I'm not a budget person.
Okay. Not a problem, but that was just a one-time deal then,
Yes,
not
yes,
every year. Okay,
yes. And it came in very, very appropriate time because we were able to put in a parking lot at a new property. Basically, because we had that donation.
okay.
So this is Counselor Moffett. To kind of go off of what Bob just asked and the comment that you just made, Marilyn, about that $20,000 payment in regards to the town council negotiating with a solar developer. Do you know, I mean, what was that all? I mean, was it kind of lost on that? Why?
I'm not 100% sure I can explain that. It was Barbara Capalbo and she worked directly with the solar company owner. And
Okay.
came to check.
All right. All right. I'm going to, I see a hand up here. Just so I can, obviously people that show up here, I'm gonna let them ask questions. So hold on one second. Joe Moreau. Just please say your name for the record, Joe.
Hi, this is Joe Moreau. Mike Geary can tell you where I live if you need to know that, but he's good at that. I've spent a lot of time on the information I'm going to present tonight, but I just wanted to ask Marilyn a question before I get started. Is the land trust still looking to receive $15,000 on the town's budget this year for the land trust?
Yes.
Okay. First thing I wanted to mention is that I wanted to give a shout out to Lisa. Lisa's been working, we've had some outstanding fees, I've mentioned it before, for our town back into May of 2019. And Lisa notified me today and let me know that she has collected $2,829.95. So I'd like to congratulate Lisa on a job well done to take care of that for us.
What kind of fees?
What kind of
What's
fees?
that? Was outstanding fees for a solar project on Woodville Road.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Reimbursement to the town for whether it was a newspaper ads or fees that the town had to spend and was not reimbursed by the attorney or the property owner, but it has been taken care of. What I'd like to say is, and again, I spent an awful lot of time doing this, so please bear with me. This is probably the busiest time of the year for our town council members and our town staff. And between the budgeting workshops, the school budgets, the PSES workshops, and the financial town assemblies coming up. I've listened for the past 3 years to the budgeting workshops. I was also the moderator for the financial town assembly on May 5th, 2020. So I have a pretty good idea of the process. I also listen to other town meetings. I review the minutes of the meetings, agendas, the audio available on our website. I find it a way to learn more about our town. This may be the last workshop for the town's budget, so this is where I want to make my points. On February 23rd, 21, I reviewed the agenda for the land trust on the Secretary of State's website because it was not on our website. And I was trying to prepare for this budgeting meeting and looking at other departments as well. Once a meeting starts on the agenda, it is removed from the Secretary of State's website. And I found that out when I went back to look at some additional items on the agenda for the land trust. One of the things that caught my eye was an accounting at that time on the agenda of $10,829 for citizens and Webster $665,962. I tried to look for additional items on the Secretary of State, but as I said, it was already gone. At the budgeting workshop on February 22nd, the chair of the land trust was asking for $15,000. There was a discussion about line items of expenses were discussed, which was not part of the draft copies of the budget material that I picked up. I requested a copy of that spreadsheet so I could look at the information being discussed. I decided to review our website department's agendas, minutes of the meetings, audio and video for the land trust again to learn more about it prior to the budgets. When I looked at 2020, there were 5 months with no information at all. In 2019, all of the information was there. I'm sure the issues with COVID had some impact, but there are other ways to provide the town's taxpayers with this information. If you look at how our town council and other departments has had to adapt to still continue running the business of our town. I also looked and I went back in minutes of the meeting on October 27th, 2020, the last entry date that I was able to look up and look at the meetings. So going on almost 6 months, information is not available for our land trust. When I reviewed I provided you with some information and emails from the debt service. I also looked at 6 line items for the land trust. Obviously, I'm not going to read all of that information. I want to focus on one category. Fiscal year 18-19 actual numbers, interest on debt was $27,550. Fiscal year 19/20 actual interest on debt was $105,219. When you look at fiscal year 2021, year to date, December 31st, interest on debt is $52,219. We've paid a total interest on debt total of $184,988. Again, $184,988 just for the land trust. There's also a line item for $1,500 for each year continuing bond disclosure fee for each period. I also verified some other information today. A bond for $2 million was issued in 2019. The bond amount would not include interest. The resolution states that the land trust can borrow up to $2 million, which implies that the principal amount cannot exceed $2 million. Both the bond interest and the principal would be paid by the town annually in the operating budget. I wonder how many residents that approved that bond realized that they would be paying interest in the following years. I had no idea myself. When property in town is transferred or sold, there is a process called tax stamp revenue. The fee is $4.60 for every $1,000 of the sale price. And an example, if a house was sold for $500,000 or property, the transfer the fee is $2,300. A portion goes to the state and the rest goes to the town. As Marilyn pointed out, the town applies 25% of that number and gives it to the land trust until they receive that number of $15,000. When the property is, here's another example. When the property is transferred to the land trust, that property is removed from the town's tax rolls. If you took that $500,000 piece of property, whatever real estate was being paid in taxes, the taxes on that property, that is gone once it's transferred to the land trust. When you add up the interest payments on the bond, the loss of the tax stamp revenue, and the loss of the taxes on the property, it is very expensive to our town's taxpayers. Think about this for a minute. Does this make sense? A bond is approved for $2 million. Then we pay interest on the $2 million that we approved. Then the land is removed from the tax rolls. So it cost us money to make less money from the taxes on the property. I also looked at bond issued in 2012 for $1 million, 2018 for $500,000, and 2019, $2 million for the land trust. As was mentioned, $10,000 was received last year, and I asked this question initially. The land trust has continued to look for the $15,000 for this year. It was so refreshing to hear both library staffs, the ambulance corps, talked tonight about level funding. And two of the comments made by the library people that spoke, we would never ask for an increase after the year we've gone through. Think about that. They're willing to accept level funding, and our land trust continues to ask for an increase. I mentioned earlier that I received copies of the Hopkinton Land Trust and an overview and the 3-year expense and income dated 18 February 2021. One line item for fiscal year 19/20 shows $20,000 in revenue from Southern Sky and $20,000 from Atlantic Solar. That was mentioned earlier. Fiscal year 19/20, the actual shows $20,000 from Southern Sky and 0 from Atlantic Solar. If you go down and look at fiscal year 2021, the budget shows $20,000 for Southern Sky, 0 for Atlantic Solar. Fiscal year 21-22, the proposed budget shows $20,000 from Southern Sky, 0 from Atlantic. All this extra income from solar, and they're asking for an increase from the $10,000 to the $15,000. And I don't recall the exact numbers. I attended all of those hearings. It was either a 20 or a 25-year period that $20,000 would be paid. It's part of the deal to approve the project, and that's basically what has happened. The Land Trust has done a good job to protect and manage property in Hopkinton. One of the other questions I have is how many residents of Hopkinton walk these trails? Certainly most of our senior residents do not. Steve Moffett mentioned a statistic at one of the meetings and said that 25% of our residents are 65 years of age or older. I'm sure that they're not walking those trails. I believe enough is enough. When there are so many pressing needs for our town, I don't believe the Land Trust should receive any funding. In my opinion, the Land Trust is doing what is best for the Land Trust and not considering what is best for all of the residents for our town. Think about it. They are getting $20,000 a year additional income. Another area of concern that I have is for fiscal year 21-22. No funds will be appropriated for the Town Hall consolidation project. We have residents who have a difficult time using the ramp in our Town Hall. I am surprised that we have not had a complaint from some residents concerning the Americans with Disability Act. The purpose of the law is to make sure that people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. Our planning and finance department is in a separate building on the 2nd floor with no wheelchair accessibility. Employees from those departments, I give them a lot of credit because they will meet with residents, whether it's at the town hall, at the bottom of the rickety stairs, whatever it may be. Our residents in those departments, our employees in those departments will go out of their way to help. Our town manager's office and recreation department is at the Crandall House. It's in the same position as the planning and finance. Upstairs, no wheelchair accessibility. The walk-in closet at my home is larger than the, think about this, is larger than the tax collector's offices, the GIS office, tax assessor's office, and our town clerk's office. Our building and zoning is squeezed into part of the DPW building. I believe that after the budgeting and PSES workshops are completed, we should have an agenda item to discuss our town's hall's consolidation. One final point I want to make is all the considerations that people had said tonight on the telephone. I was very pleased with that. They are making concessions due to lack of revenue in their particular areas of expertise. Our own recreation department has seen a lack of revenue, but yet the Land Trust is looking for an increase of $5,000 from last year after receiving additional funds from solar. Where does it stop? That's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, first of all, I don't really see it as an increase because, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. a decrease from the year before. However, I want to point out that relative to bonds, bond issues that are passed by the voters benefit the town, whether it's repairing roads or I don't know what some of the other bonds have been passed for. And they pay interest as well. I know that we had a presentation many years ago about protecting land. Taking property off the tax rolls is cited as a negative thing. What can happen with some of these properties is a developer will come in and put in 20 houses. Each one of those, it's been proven that development is more costly to a town than open space by means of having more children in apartments and so forth. Oftentimes, properties that we are protecting are not really paying the full amount of taxes. They're paying on a farm, forest, or open space. They're paying a reduced level. And as far as use of trails, that over the past year, the increase in use of open space has been astronomical. We had a meeting with the Land Trust Council, people from all over the state talking about the impact to their open space and their trails because of increased use. So we need to maintain these trails. We need to add new trails. We need to build bridges. We need to put parking areas in. I'm just saying that we have stuff to do. And we can't do it all with volunteers. So we end up paying for materials and hiring people to help do some of the heavy work. That's about all I have to say right now. And I didn't have time to prepare things relative to Joe Moreau's remarks, so I may not be that coherent.
Okay, well, thank you for responding. Do any other counselors have any comments or any questions or anything?
Council Moffett, Council Gary, no.
Sure. No, he said.
No, but I will say that whatever the budget amount, I was on the council that started the land trust. I think it's a positive thing in the town. And it'd be interesting, the discussion with the budget situation, but we are stressed financially, and there's something that we have to take in account across the board. COVID has really knocked the wind out of the sail of not only the town, but a lot of things. So these are very unusual times, and I'm a 67-year-old man. So there's nothing really to compare it to. So I think we'll probably do some things this year that we normally wouldn't do. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Kind of to reflect on what Scott said, the town, this is obviously a trying year. We don't know exactly what all of our expenses are. So, we would do things this year that, we may not do in other years. But I can say that, the land trust, having obviously, found a new revenue stream, which I don't know if there was an agreement with the previous council that it was absolutely 100% earmarked. If there was an agreement, if it's in writing that monies, from the solar went directly to the land trust. I don't know if it's in,
I can send you a copy of the agreement.
In writing, if it's, Brian, do you know if it's, excuse me?
I said I can send
Marilyn,
you
did you comment?
the agreement.
Yeah, if you could do that, I would. I would
think
appreciate
she's I think she's referencing an agreement, Marilyn, correct me if I'm wrong, are you referencing an agreement between the solar company and the land trust?
Yes.
Okay, and that was something that the previous town council agreed upon? I mean, because obviously, I mean, land trust land is, okay.
That was done independently from the previous council.
So land trust land, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, thank you. So land trust land at the end of the day is, I mean, it's taxpayer, it's Hopkinton land. It's owned by Hopkinton, right? It's not owned by the land trust?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so, you know, kind of, you know, this is kind of where I'm at with this, you know, I mean, I understand the $15,000 was a, you know, something that the previous councils were willing to supplement the land trust with. And obviously, they were willing to bring bonds up to voters, to allow voters to decide whether or not that they wanted to purchase lands. You know, and when they started this $15,000, I'm sure they weren't anticipating at that time that there would be revenue coming from solar to the town. It's kind of, it's, you know, it kind of you know, to say it bothers me is probably the wrong word, and it's for lack of a better word. And maybe it's for, say, a lack of understanding, but I mean, technically, I mean, it's tax revenue to the town that is being given to the land trust. So with that being said, I have a problem with the $15,000 request. I would even have a problem with level funding from last year. So I would like to put up for discussion amongst the council here in regards to that. If they have any thoughts or inputs in regard to the funding. I don't want to you know, kind of kick this down a curb. I mean, it's slightly an elephant in the room for some of us. I mean, it's I mean, it is tax revenue. I'm sure there's plenty of people in town, taxpayers that are unaware of it. And to kind of go back to what Marilyn had said about bonds paying for, you know, voters accept of it, and we also pay interest on bonds that pay roads. But every citizen in this town uses a road. There's a road that I drive down every day that, I mean, it's, I mean, I have to drive super slow to go down it. You know, I mean, if I don't want to lose a muffler or if I don't want to bust a tire or anything like that. So I think this is a discussion that the town council needs to have in light of the $20,000 payment that the land trust is receiving from the solar developers. So if anybody wants to say anything, they can say it now.
All I can say is when we make a decision, we need to keep I'm going to try to be open-minded, but not every aspect of town government gets revenue generated by solar or any other type of thing that we do in town. So we got to keep that in mind. The police department doesn't get it. The rec department doesn't get it. Usually any of those other government entities usually get grants from, would it be a government grant or some, the Champlain Foundation or what have you. The land trust has the financial ability to tap into something that other aspects of town government can't really tap into. I guess some of the revenue does go to the town clerk's office, but the land trust has the advantage. The rec department can't tap into that money, or the public works department or things, or the police department. So that's something to take into consideration. But I'm going to try to have an open mind on it because I try to be supportive of the land trust historically. But these are trying times, and I'm willing to listen to what people have. But I think we got to take into consideration what I just said, that not everybody gets fees like the land trust does, other government entities. So we should take that into consideration because it is a revenue source. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, President Moffett, Mike Gary.
Yes, Michael.
Yeah, she's saying there was an understanding. Marilyn, you're saying there was an understanding between solar and the land trust, and the past town council went along with it. Lisa, can you interject it all on that?
I'm sorry, I'm not. You're asking
Sorry,
me?
I'm not sure who are you asking, Marilyn or myself?
He's asking you, Lisa.
I'm asking you, Lisa. Wait, she's,
I don't believe, without, you're hitting this with me, at me cold. When the town council made their decisions, they rendered them into a decision, and I don't recall specifically if I don't recall how that, I'd have to look it up. I mean, I don't have that committed to memory. Marilyn probably would be best to advise as far as how that came up with it. But I know that in rendering a decision, one of the counselors in rendering that decision did mention the land trust. And I think there were some other decisions that provided for easements and or a parking lot, but those all were different projects. So I can look that information up and provide you with those decisions, but to say right off the top of my head that I know exactly which one and how much and all that, I would be erroneous to let you know that I have that information right at the ready. So
no,
I will
Lisa,
have to pull that information together, and perhaps Marilyn can respond, specifically to what you're asking about.
no, Lisa, I wouldn't expect you to have that at the ready. I was just it just sounded like it was like one of those things that just, this is something we've always done. And now, we're kind of asking some questions and just trying to, like Councilor Hurst here, just trying to be a little bit more open and see what we can come up with here on that. That's all I got, Steve.
Brian, did you raise your finger?
Yeah, I just wasn't really exactly clear what the question was, because I didn't know if I could maybe.
Let me repeat the question. Okay. Marilyn said there was an understanding between solar and the land trust for $20,000 a year. Somewhere my thing is, well, how did that agreement go about? Was the past town council involved in it? Which you said, which Marilyn said it was an individual.
Yeah, I can explain that.
Okay, go ahead.
If you would like.
Please.
The one-time payment was something that was done with the previous town council. The $1,000 a year that we receive now is under an agreement with the solar developer. The property that they wanted to develop had a right-of-way through it that belonged to the land trust.
All right, let me stop you Baron, let me stop you real quick. Help me understand this. Are we talking about Blue Sky Solar or Atlantic Solar, who gave you a one-time $20,000 gift?
That was Atlantic Solar.
Okay. The $20,000 comes from Blue Sky, right?
Southern Sky, yes.
Southern Sky, I'm sorry. That's the one I'm trying to figure out. I understand there's an understanding between you and Solar, but how did it come across through town council for you to get this every year? That's my question.
That was not tied to anything that the town council did. We did that independently because the land trust owned a right-of-way over the piece of property that the developer wanted to develop.
Okay.
So they offered us right off the bat $25,000. And then we sat back and said, wait a minute, they're going to be benefiting from this property for how many years with their solar development in there? So we sat down and talked to them and said, we will move this right of way so that you can use more of the land to develop. But in exchange for that, we came to the agreement where they would pay us $20,000 a year. We also negotiated for a trail that goes down along next to the solar project and a small parking area. Now there's another way to access our property that is behind there, the land trust property. People can walk down to access the trail that they installed for us to get onto the other property. Does that make sense now?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Marilyn.
Okay.
Mr. President, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. All right. So I guess, you know, part of what I'm saying is that, you know, as of 2 years ago, and as of there not being any solar, the land trust was not receiving $20,000 from Southern Sky. Just to kind of add to, you know, for Mike, I mean, when you say land trust land, I mean, I understand it's land trust land, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's a town of Hopkinton's land, right? Am I wrong by
Yes.
saying that?
No. If
Okay.
you look in the tax rolls, it says Hopkinton Land Trust. The land trust is part of the town.
Exactly. So any agreement with the land trust, and a sole developer would be an agreement with the town and the developer. That's just all that I want to make clear here. And I just, you know, and kind of echo what Scott said, you know, no other, you know, town department or anything has that ability. You know, the previous council didn't, you know, I mean, they could have said, you know what, we're going to keep the $15,000, but we're going to take that $20,000, and you know what, we need to add to our town hall consolidation for the next 20 years. I mean, $20,000 a year for 25 years is a pretty good payment. So again, I mean, to not beat a dead horse, I just wanted to have the conversation that I did not. $15,000 for me is out of the question. Even $10,000 for me is completely out of the question. I mean, the previous councils, whoever decided that $15,000 was enough, I mean, to add that $20,000 a year to me is just, it's something that I don't think the town can do right now. I mean, granted, you know, yes, the land trust goes out and they are doing a ton of service. They are preserving land. They are doing all of this. You know, we do have land trust lands that, you know, obviously, you know, have rudimentary trails and need some work done on them and all the other stuff. But at the end of the day, these lands are town lands and protected, so they are not going to be developed on. I just don't. I can't buy into it. You know, that we're taking $20,000 of taxpayer money and adding it to the $15,000 that they've been getting $35,000 a year to maintain this. I just I have a hard time with it. I don't know if I mean, obviously, I mean, this is a discussion for the town council to have. I'd be willing to cut it in half and say $7,500. I mean, that's and to me, that's being generous. I mean, the last council, you know, I mean, that $20,000 payment from Atlantic Solar, I'll be straight up honest. I mean, that's just, it doesn't sit right with me. It just seems kind of weird that we were negotiating, the last council was negotiating with a solar developer, and somehow we got $20,000. I just don't, I don't know. It just doesn't smell right. It just, you know, to me. So I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm going to say that I will agree to half of what the proposed town funding would be for the land trust. So there you go. It's up for discussion at $7,500. Does anyone have anything to say?
Counselor Hurst, I'm gonna try to keep an open mind on this subject, but I think if you look at the town of Hopkinton compared to other towns in our region, maybe with the exception of Wesley, I'm not sure, because they have a private land trust and a town land trust. But we're in, I think, better shape than Charlestown and Richmond, and we have really, our land trust has done very well in recent times, and they have a good record. So the town has really made an emphasis on saving land. We can't save it all until we really take a serious look at how we fund education. land is going to be very, very valuable because people are looking for places to build houses and we can't save it all. So I think we have to be selective, and we also have to be selective on development that we approve, and we just can't save every piece of land. But also, we also have to recognize as members of the town council, we have to have a good rapport with all the different departments in town and all those, the nonprofits that we dealt with tonight, so that we can make Hopkinton work. We show appreciation for the land. We show an appreciation for our police and public safety, our public works, and things of that nature. So I think, at least when it comes to preserving land, I think we're in pretty good shape compared to other towns. Might be an exception with Westerly, but I think we've done very well, and I'm proud that I supported the establishment of a land trust. But I'm going to try to keep an open mind and see what other councilors think on that subject. Thank you.
Council Moffett, Council Gary.
Yes, sir.
I mean, just, I've heard both sides of the argument. I mean, nobody department wise gets 20,000 kicker right off the bat. I mean, you guys have discussed other things with other departments, DPW, police, training, stuff like that. I think I kind of I walk the same walk with you, President, with the $7,500.
Thank you, Counselor Gary.
Council President Bob Marvel here. I guess, obviously I support the land trust. I am the council liaison to the land trust. So, I do support their work in what they do. But it is true that, we are in a difficult position where we have to find money where money doesn't exist for the town budget. And so we have to ask everyone to tighten their belts and to reduce expenses and reduce their budget amounts. So I support less for that reason. And I don't want that to I don't want anyone to think that we don't support the land trust because of that, because we do. We just really have to really make ends meet this year, and we're going to have to make some difficult choices. So I have to support what Council President is proposing.
Council President, Council Gary.
Yes, sir.
I mean, my justification of this is, you had the Ashwa Ambulance on here. What did Eric Perrin say? They had to roll the dice and go on eBay, which, just like anything, you buying something off the internet, so they could be up to speed. And $1,500 for them is a pretty good, amount of money they had to spend on that stuff. So these are the things we kind of look at.
Thank you, Councilor Geary. This is Councilor Moffett again. I want to reflect what both of you have said. I support the land trust. I think what they do is great. But right now, like Bob said, we have to find money that is not there. And if it weren't for the $20,000, I would have no problem funding the land trust with the $15,000 at all, no questions asked. Okay, because what I think they do, they add a level of recreation, hiking, logging, jogging trails. I mean, just nature, exposing, people to the outdoors. A lot of people move here from the city. A lot of people move from other places, for that exact reason, and they're able to experience that, with what the land trust has done. So I just wanted to leave it at that. And if any other counselors have any other comments, and if not, I'll respectfully ask Brian what the process is as far as changing that light item. Yes, Sharon, go ahead.
This is Marilyn. Sharon Davis, you have something to say?
Yes, I do. I think I might be wrong, and maybe this is what Brian can tell me, but I think that last year Sylvia recommended a lesser amount than what was on the budget then. The budget then said 10,000. That's why I don't understand why it's saying that last year or this current year it was 15. Brian, did it get reduced? Isn't that the line item that got reduced?
Yeah, it was 10,000 last year. The current fiscal year, FY21, it is 10,000. Now,
Right.
the previous year in FY20 and FY19, it was 15,000.
Right.
Now, our FY20 budget got rejected, so keep that in mind. So everything was, basically essentially the FY20 budget was the FY19 budget, where it was funded at 15,000. So it was 15,000 in 1920, and then it was reduced last year. As far as like speaking to which council member voted what, I don't remember, but I do remember discussion being had amongst the council, and they did, I guess, without really remembering the conversation, it did get reduced. So obviously there was a vote to reduce it, and I do remember the solar being part of that discussion, but I don't remember really who fared on which side, to reduce it. I don't really remember the
Well, I thought Sylvia wanted that 5,000 to go back to the town clerk's budget. Do you remember that, Lisa?
I do this is Lisa. I do remember discussion along those lines. Yes. So if we're in the current fiscal year and it's 10,000, so that additional 15 would go right to the town general fund.
Right.
Additional 5, rather. Sorry.
That's what I thought it was. All right. That's all I have to say.
All right, this is Marilyn again. I just would like to make a case for level funding for 10,000. And just because money comes from solar doesn't mean that we don't need it. And I understand tightening belts and everything, so I guess that's all I have to say.
Councilor Hurst, I'm going to say I lived in this town 67 years, and hopefully I'll be living in town a few additional years. Hope to live to be an old cantankerous Yankee. But I would say that it's important to note that, as I said, we don't know what the voters are going to do in June. So we might have a situation where the budget is rejected again. You never know how they react to the Charahoe budget, and the town gets the last bite at the apple. So we don't know where that's going to go in state aid and all these other things. So I think we got to be prepared for that reality. Not that I'm looking forward to it, and it might not happen, but it's a possibility, knowing how votes can go in this town. So I just ask the council to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, Brian, so how are we gonna handle this? What's
Yeah, so if it sounds like, I mean, I don't know if you guys, you don't have to take a vote, but everybody kind of chimes in on what they want to do. It sounds to me like, I don't know if it was formally decided on, but if you guys decide to cut it down to 7,500, that we would just reduce the amount that they were getting. So that 7,500 would go back into the town clerk's revenue, which essentially would come off the tax roll, right? I mean, or the tax revenue, reduce the amount of revenue we needed from tax, unless it was the council decided to use it somewhere else. But as is, it would go back into the operating budget as revenue in the town clerk's department.
All right, thank you.
I'm fine with that. Is there any discussion on that?
I'm good with it.
I think
Okay.
Council Marvel expressed his
Okay.
for that. Okay.
I mean, if that's what you guys want to do, that's how it would work. So it's revenue right now that gets allocated, like she's mentioned earlier, 25% up until the cap, which now will be 7,500. So whatever is not allocated out from the town clerk's revenue will stay within there. So we would actually be able to increase the forecast on that line item.
Okay.
So how much, can you tell me how much of a difference that would make on tax rate? Like
It would be
a percent or something?
Well, it would be 1 penny on the mill rate roughly.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
It doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, again,
It's
we have a
No.
lot of things in this town that we need. We need a new website. We need to fund this stuff. We need to communicate to our residents. There's a large cry out for a new website and a more usable interface. I mean, we need to be able to be able to guide the residents where to go. I mean, just we need bigger and better situations like that. So again, Brian, I mean, if I mean, is that something we can do? I mean, can we add that to? I mean, there's got to be something else that we don't have to throw it back in, that we could add to.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I mean,
another pot that we need to put that money into. I mean, the website for me, you know, and that kind of communications. I mean, for instance, I mean, not for nothing. I mean, we're talking about body cams potentially, stuff like that. I mean, there's lots of different avenues that we can use that money to not just throw it back, to lower the mill rate so that we can provide things for the people in the town. I mean, obviously the recreation department is taking a big, huge hit. I mean, the COVID has had a major effect on that. I mean, I can tell you right now, the basketball hoops at Crandall Field are in horrible condition. I mean, there's so much. So I don't know if not making a decision, you know, for this, you know, reduction in funds now, where we would allocate that to. I mean, is that up for discussion at a later date? Is there any more time to do that? I mean, or what do we?
Yeah, I think what we would do is it would go back in as operating revenue, which for the time being would reduce the necessary tax revenue by 1 penny. So we'd reduce the amount of revenue we needed from taxes by $7,500. And then if the council decided there was another place they wanted to put it, we would increase that line item by, you know, 5,000, 2,000, or wherever you guys decide to put that money, and then it would just come right back out, right? So I guess it doesn't have to be like 1 for 1. We don't have to like take it out of one bucket and put it in another. For now, it'll just reside in a reduction in tax revenue. And if you guys decide down the road that we need to add it here, or you want to, you know, increase the CIP or whatever you wanted to do with it, it would just get us back to where we are now.
Right. And so, I mean, what's the deadline on that? I mean, do we have a deadline on?
Well, I mean, that's kind of a little bit further discussion because this is technically our last, well, not, this was going to be our last workshop, but I think I was going to propose that we have another one, even if it's a brief one, down the road when we have a little more information on a few items I was going to discuss. Because I don't think it would be a lengthy workshop, but I think that there's a few outstanding items that are unknowns. You know, building and zoning revenue, state aid, the tax roll, motor vehicles is still not completely priced.
Right.
So the tax assessor's office is still working on that. And our insurance rates, the trust usually gives us our final rates in like mid-March. We're hoping for them. So there's still a few outstanding items, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to meet briefly down the road and kind of just look at the budget in totality and just get the final blessing from the council on, and, have another, once over on the summaries. We can go through some of the highlights or things we wanted to go back and address. And then, we can discuss the tax rate, the CIP, the fund balance, and then you guys can give your final blessing on it.
Yeah, I think that's, Mike Gary, I think that's a good idea. Set us up and we can just do the final. And I think that you still have questions on.
That's what I would suggest too. I think because these meetings, we have a lot of people come in and speak, and the time gets away from us. And I think if we can kind of have these individual workshops that kind of get all the pieces in a row, and then I think now that we say, okay, this is the budget as it is stands, let's look at it as a whole and see, and I can kind of talk about the mechanics of it and how it's working a little bit and where we stand, and you guys can kind of make some of the big high level decisions on certain projects, if we want to go forward with them, or if we want to try to address the tax rate, whatever you want to do at that point.
Right. That all sounds great, Brian. And I just, because I know Marilyn's going to want to say something again. And so, in which I will let her, have last word, is that, this is obviously a new council. The last council thought that the $20,000 using on it, to add to their yearly budget, $20,000 was a good thing. I don't want to feel as if I personally have to hold that line. So, but with that being said, Marilyn, if you had any closing comments or anything, I welcome them, please.
I don't know. I still would just, I know everybody's going through the same thing where it's difficult to function with the current climate with finances and such. So we'll just do what we can, and yep. I guess that's about all I can say. Thank you for your time and
Thank you, Marilyn.
consideration.
Thank you for coming in tonight. All right. So up next, Brian, we have building and zoning revenue. Is that what?
Yeah. So the building and zoning revenue, I asked Jim to come on, and just in case we needed him. I was texting him earlier, so he didn't have to sit through the whole meeting, and he could just come on for this segment. But I think, as you guys are probably well aware, one of the projects that we were kind of waiting to see what was going on. I don't think much, after speaking with Jim, he said there wasn't much decided at the last meeting, or between the last meeting and now. So again, that's another reason why I thought maybe we'd have more information as, after another week or a week and a half goes by, when we want to wrap this thing up, because that is kind of a big piece of the budget this year. So I think we want to get that right one way or another. We got to decide what we want to do, if we want to reduce that solar revenue or keep it as is. And I think that more time might be valuable. And that's my understanding. I don't know. I'm not really on top of these individual projects and the progress, like a lot of the council, and certainly like planning. So I'd leave that up to you. You guys probably are more knowledgeable about where that stands, but that was my 2 cents. Is like, I don't know, if we need more time, we have another workshop to wrap this thing up, and hopefully we know more at that point in time.
Well, I will add, obviously, I would like to hear from Jim. I mean, his opinion, but listening to the last planning board meeting, I do know that the Stone Ridge, they asked for an extension or a continuation of their hearing. So I know things are getting, kind of kicked down the road a little bit. So, I mean, obviously I would assume that's probably going to make things play out a little longer. So, I mean, if Jim may have some more insight on that. So I don't know if that's something he's willing to offer up or whatever. I'd like to hear it.
Should we?
Yes, go ahead, Jim, if you're there.
Yes,
I believe-
Jim Lampier, Town Planner, I'm here. Any questions you might have, I can answer. I just heard you talking about Stone Ridge just now. As you correctly pointed out, they asked for a continuance to the April meeting, April 7th, because they're in the process of working with the Conservation Commission. They're altering their project, scaling it down, and making it so that the Narragansett Trail can be maintained, and the Appalachian Mountain Club they're working with to make sure that they're happy with the new configuration that they have. And so I guess in April we'll see how that works out. But what I was hoping to get from the March meeting on this particular project is some sort of a consensus on the planning board that they are willing to accept this as a legitimate project. Now, when people are going to ask me, about do we expect this revenue to come forth and in what year do we want it to come forth, I can say this, that if these projects that I'm looking at are not contested, if they're accepted projects, and if they're projects that are worked through the system as we've worked through many solar projects, then I can with pretty much good confidence say when this revenue is going to come in. But should I have a planning board that's not willing to accept this project as even legitimately coming before it, and also not just the planning board, but I have this project potentially being challenged by an outside objecting party. So these are all wild cards that I can't foresee how they're going to play out. Myself personally, I believe that Stone Ridge is a project that should go forth and get approved. Two other parcels that were a part of the Brayburn project have went through the planning board with approved solar projects that are being built right now. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't know how how the town would prevail on this should it go to court if we were to not deny these people an opportunity to go forth and put a solar project on their property. It would astound me. So I would say I would bet pretty heavily my own money that Stone Ridge is going to be an approved solar project at some point in time, probably getting that revenue in FY22. So that's what I can say regarding Stone Ridge. One other thing I did note, Brian, and I'm looking at that spreadsheet now from February the 26th. I see that Skunk Hill has some revenue projected from it for FY21, and
that's not really worth discussing. I don't think at this point, Jim.
Okay.
If it's an FY21 project, I know that timing wise it might get moved out, and I believe that's what you were saying, but we're going to have a deficit in the current year, so we can't double forecast it, right? Because if it was forecasted in the current year and we don't get it, we're going to have a deficit in the current year, which will be made up the following year if we get it the next fiscal year. But we can't budget it again. Right.
No, I agree. It should be moved out, if anything. I would say, again now, Skunk Hill and Atlantic, those are two other solar projects that are being hotly contested by some parties right now. And again, depending upon how that contest goes, I guess theoretically, we could never see revenue from those projects. But conversely, if they do go forth, probably you're looking at those two projects there, probably FY22 on those, I would say, at the earliest, if not 23. Because neither one of those two projects, Skunk Hill or Atlantic, have even had master plan review yet with the planning board. So they have a long way to go. And Stone Ridge is currently within master plan review with the planning board. So those are the wild cards that I can't really predict. And the other one is the Camoli project that we have here projected at FY22. That's another hotly contested project. And again, depending upon how these challenges work out, I don't know. Let's assume that all the challenges to these projects fail. Then let's go on that assumption. Then I would say the revenue years that Brian has here in this spreadsheet are probably accurate.
Okay, so yeah, and a couple of those projects you mentioned aren't in the current fiscal year or budgeted. I think it really just comes down to that one project and whether we feel comfortable enough or how we feel that's going to fare, whether we want to take it out or leave it. I think it really does boil down to that one project.
Oh, okay, okay.
At least for like the current budget, you know, like I said, if it was budgeted in the previous year, a couple of them we didn't have a high enough confidence level to put them in. So that was like the one big one that really, we didn't really, you know, we put it in, and it's just a matter of whether we want to leave it in and, you know, hope that revenue comes through in the next fiscal year or take it out. That's really, I think that for this budget conversation, the biggest factor.
Yep. Well, I think you got it projected very well, Brian. I would say that if the project goes through as it probably should, then I think the revenue would come in FY22. But again, it's awful tough for me to predict what the planning board might do. Even if I hate to speculate what they could do. They could do a lot of things, and they could do some things which could possibly stretch it out to FY23 if they really wanted to stretch that review process out. They could even deny it, let's say, which would lead to an appeal, which would stretch this out. But again, short of all that coming to pass, I would say FY22. And myself personally, as the planner, I don't think there's any justification for giving that project a hard time, in my opinion. So I would say what you have in the spreadsheet is FY22 is probably true.
Lisa has her hand up here. Lisa, do you have something to say, Lisa?
This is Lisa. You've covered a lot of ground, so I'm not quite certain if I recall what it was, but I know Brian mentioned having another workshop, and I wasn't sure when he was thinking, but we will run out of time at the end. It can't be later in the month because we need to get an ad into the paper, a notice per the charter, 30 days ahead of the Financial Town Assembly. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
We have till March 19th, right, Lisa?
Well, it takes me a few days to get that to the paper as well and get it published.
It says budget transmitted by clerk to Westerly Sun on March 19th. And then
Okay.
April 4th, budget published no later than this date. So I think the
Yep.
last
Okay.
possible date we would have, and I don't even know what days of the week those are, we'd have until, I think, so I'd have to turn it around and get you that document within a day if we met on the 18th.
Yeah.
Councilor Hurst.
Be a little tight.
Councilor Hurst, I think I don't think we should really pull our hairs out. When we have our financial town assembly in May, the council, even after that, with input and new information, we can adjust the budget that is presented at the financial town assembly. We still have to adopt a final budget that goes before the voters of Hopkinton. So I wouldn't really stress on that amount because we have flexibility beyond the 19th. That's only the proposed budget that's presented. It can be adjusted based upon the financial town assembly and any other new information before we adopt the final budget that's presented to the voters. So I wouldn't really sweat it at all. Thank you.
This is Lisa. That is correct. That is correct. I just want to make sure that we have enough time, and the 18th is the zoning board meeting, so you can't have it that night.
So yeah, I agree with Councilman Hurst. So you guys will have ample opportunity to make changes. I still think it'd be a good idea to get together and kind of, because these workshops are so specific as to like departments and what boards and commissions are discussed. I think it'd be good to just kind of have an overall conversation and, get into the details of how the tax rate works and where the tangible revenue was increased due to solar and a lot of those things that have popped up. We'll have some time to kind of just go over the whole thing. And I'd like to have an opportunity to walk you guys through that. So I think another meeting, even if it was for like a half hour, I think would be the most we would need to just wrap things up so that you guys kind of have a good understanding of the budget as a whole. And then, but I think Councilman Hurst and Lisa both, they're absolutely right. As far as, giving it your blessing, it doesn't mean we'll have plenty of chances to update it and change it if things throughout the next, through April, almost to the end of April, when like the statute is due to the state on like April 24th. So we would still have, over a month to really kind of get some more information coming in. And generally things do come up and change that we would tweak here and there. So I agree. We don't have to get like a final product at the next workshop, but at least have a chance to just review it as a whole. I think would be a good thing.
Hey, Brian, it's Mike. Are you looking for a date from one of us, or do you want to try to pick a date? And you can
Yeah, I mean, if we're available, if you guys are available, I think we could do it.
Monday.
I mean, the more time we give ourselves, the more information will be available. But as far as we're not going to know anything more regarding solar revenue by the time we have to meet. So this, I guess there's no reason to push it out too far. I think it would just be a matter of us just spending a half hour.
I just want to avoid the third Wednesday and the fourth Thursday.
This is Lisa. I would suggest perhaps the 15th, if you could do it on, if you only need a half an hour or an hour, do it at 6 o'clock on Monday, the 15th, ahead of your town council meeting. That way you're not out another night.
Sounds good.
I'm good with that.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I honestly think, a half hour, 40 minutes would be the most I would need to walk you guys through it. And then, but again, Lisa, when does the council have to vote on the proposed budget? Is that the financial town assembly on April 25th?
No, let's see, the Financial Town Assembly is scheduled for Tuesday, May 4th. And then there's some language in the budget that, in the charter rather, and I believe you have until like the following week to adopt the budget.
It says
and
June
present it to-
29th. June 29th it says on our budget timeline, it says June 29th, last day for council to formally adopt budget as approved by referendum.
Right,
But
in June. But I mean, as far as the town council having its final word on the budget before it's sent to the voters for June 8th is in May, after the district financial meeting. So it's usually within a week following that meeting. So you technically, what typically is done is a special town council meeting the Monday before it's due or something like that. So I haven't looked at the calendar to determine when that would be a good time, but there's still ample time to make adjustments. Plus the Charahoe budget referendum, you'll have the information when that is done on April 6th. So you'll have more information from that decision as well.
Yeah, that's usually the thing that we hold out for, is to figure out what they're doing. I'm looking at the budget. I think, does this sound right to you, Lisa? May 12th, budget and warrant items approved by council no later than this date, no later than 1 week and 1 day after assembly.
Yes, that would be the final date to do so.
Yeah. So that's the absolute final date. But again, I would propose that if we have time before next council meeting, if you guys can make yourselves available, that we spend a half hour or so, just going over the budget as a whole.
I'm good with that.
That works
Councilor
for
Moffett,
me.
Okay. One of the last items that we had on tonight's agenda, so the estimated tax rate, that's going to change because we made a change tonight. And I think that's going to be probably the primary focus. Like, I'm going to go over that whole tab and the mechanics of that in the next, when we just meet the next time, next Monday. But the one other item that I think we should talk about is the town council stipends, because that was on here as outstanding item. And I think if we could address that tonight, that would be a good thing, because that way we can just focus on the budget as a whole and not the specific details of the departments.
So I have a
Steve?
question on that. So, you know, we had discussed before that it's always the previous council who would vote on something for the next council. So wouldn't this discussion be best had next year's budget? Or am I missing something?
I don't know if that was a, what do you call it,
An unfinished
I'm
item?
losing the word. If it was just, that's the way they did things, whether they had to wait until the next, that it wouldn't be effective. But based on the things that have happened, I'm willing to withdraw making any increase this year.
Yeah,
So,
Councilman Hurst, I do believe that there should be a change in the council's compensation. And I would ask that we consult with our attorneys about the legal issues as far as when you can set the stipend for the council and when it's appropriate. Because it could be a legal issue, and I think we should at least know that for next year. I do believe that things go in cycles, and I followed Hopkinton history since I was a kid, and one time I was president of the Historical Society. But the fact of the matter is, in this town, usually people aren't motivated to run unless there's a hot issue. Like last election, it was a solar issue, but years ago it was a big box issue. But usually you only have a certain group of people in town that are interested in running. And it's very tough to motivate people to put in the hours for a small stipend because it's a time-consuming thing if you really do town council right. So I think it's something we really should look at for the town, because we just can't wait for a hot item to come up and keep people interested in the town. Right now, solar is a big issue. After that dies down, there could be a lull in people being interested in running. So I think we should keep that in mind. But I do ask right at this present time is that we finally have a clarification, or we should have a clarification from our present lawyers of exactly when it's appropriate to have the issue of an increase for town council stipends. Thank you.
Mr. President, Councilor Geary.
Yes, yes, Councilor Gary.
As always, I realize we have our own ideas and people have a little information, but just like anything, it's like picking up an encyclopedia. I think Lisa could probably give us a better answer of what we're all looking for without going to an attorney or something like that. Lisa, could you help us out?
I'm afraid at this point, no, I do not know where to look for that.
Now, look, go on.
I'm sorry.
This is Councilor Moffett. I personally, how Sharon kind of retracted that proposal. I personally would, and this is just for discussion, have a problem voting for a potential raise for myself. I just don't. Obviously, it would be in the budget and voters would approve it, but it's also added on with everything that's in the budget. So, and the fact that we are all elected in the same year, there's no staggering terms or anything like that. We each serve a 2-year term. I personally would have a problem with voting or throwing a raise in for myself. That's all. You could throw it out there next budget as an incentive, as Scott would say, and instead of waiting for a hot item to come along, maybe bump that up. But I personally think that's a discussion for next budget. That's just my 2 cents.
Bob Marvel, I agree with you. I think I could not in good conscience vote an increase in the stipend for myself either. If I'm going to vote anyway, I would vote to reduce it, but that's just me. But I think that with our current situation, we're asking everyone else to tighten their belts and find money where money doesn't exist, and I can't see us even considering increasing what our stipend is.
Councilor Hurst, I just think that we should bring it up next year. We haven't had the problems the town of Richmond has. I think in 2 elections, they didn't have enough candidates to run for town council, and that could happen in this town. The only time I've ever run where I was given, because there was only 5 candidates, was back in 2018, and it's never happened to me before, but it's very tough to get people to run, and you also got to remember that not everybody is in the same financial position. If you're a professional person, a couple of grand might not mean anything to you, but if you're a person who, let's say you're retired and maybe you got a part-time job as a clerk in a store and you got something to offer the town, you might be less likely to run. But that couple of grands could help go towards your property taxes or whatever. So, it depends upon the individual, but not everybody is in the same financial situation too. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think it kind of sounds like we're in somewhat of an agreement here. I think there's, with Councilor Hurst stating for next year, Council Marvel would say he would vote it down. So I think, Brian, we can probably move on from that.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, if you guys had anything else you wanted to discuss tonight, feel free. If not, I'm going to go make these couple small changes in the budget.
Yeah, Brian. I got some.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I know it's probably not gonna be happy with when I say this. Did we ever get an answer on the wood that National Grid, the contractor, was cutting down? Now, I don't mean to keep beating this one, but you see.
No, yeah, I've received actually. I thought I forwarded you the email. I believe I forwarded the council the email from Dave Caswell. But yes, we've been addressing it. We get calls constant, like the last few days. Yeah. We've been getting a lot more calls, and Dave Caswell has addressed it. Okay. So he's been in.
I just don't want to use his resources up doing it where.
No, I don't think he is. I think there's people. I have to go back and read the email that I sent you because I can't remember off the top of my head. But there are people that are going to be going around cleaning them up.
Okay.
Depending on the situation, I think there's a few other parties. I'll have to go back and revisit the email, but I did forward it to you.
Brian, I get anywhere from 125 to
I know. No, I know. And that's why I can't remember either. I'm just like,
somebody could send an email about a certain tire size and it could be something different, anywhere from minimum of 75 up to 100, up to 200 something every day. So I might have missed it. My apologies if I did.
No fault at all. I'm the same boat. That's why I can't recall. I would tell you, I wish I could tell you what was said in the email, but I read too many in a day. So I don't want to misquote Dave either. So
Yep. Okay.
Let me follow up in the morning with you. I'll either give you a call or, okay.
Yeah, hold on a second. The other thing is, I just picked I saw this twice over the weekend. Dow Fields, seems like maybe thing. I don't mean to throw all the problems at you, Brian. I'm sure you have enough, but better you hear it before somebody calls or blah, 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 whatever the case may be. But it sounds like people are exercising their dogs and letting their dogs relieve themselves in Dow Field. And I'm pretty sure we got softball coming up right around there, softball, baseball for the kids here in the next month or so. So I'm not sure if maybe that's something the ACO can do, or there's signs posted, no dogs or big dogs or anything like that.
I
Absolutely.
think that's a private organization, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. So it's on them then, and it's on us. Okay.
Well, Counselor Hurst, my parting shot tonight is I'm sitting here knowing, thinking about what's going to happen with Charahoe tomorrow night when they adopt their final budget and what they're up to. And since that usually is around 75% of our budget, give or take a percentage point or points, plural, that's foremost on my mind right at the moment. And I'll behave myself and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
So Brian, Dow Field is a private, it has nothing to do with our recreational or anything like that. That's what Lisa's saying.
Yes, it's the Charahoe Athletic Association, I believe.
Okay. All right,
I want to say Anthony Appice is the president of that association, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, or I would get a hold of the Little League. Josh Davis is the president of the Charahoe Little League.
Okay.
So yeah,
I would trust whatever Lisa said.
Okay.
I take it as gospel.
I just have one hand raised here. I'm sure Joe will keep it nice and short.
Yeah,
Joe,
go home. We've been here for a while.
Joe, go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. It will absolutely be short. I agree 100% about not increasing the stipend for the town council members. I'm sure that people on the council do not take the job for the big bucks that you earn. I say that sarcastically, but that discussion was held just about every budget meeting, and it's always the outgoing council. The present council would not vote on that move. I wanted to clarify something for Marilyn, and I'll do it at the next meeting. The bond dollars I quoted in the years were all on the debt service page 17, and it starts off with 5570. Talks about interest on band. I think that's a typo. It should be bond, but it lists the dates there of the bonds, and they're all land trust bonds. They are nothing to do with town roads. The other thing I would suggest, and the people that have attended these solar hearings, typically one council member will have a list of codicils. I would be very careful with this Southern Sky. I don't know which project they're talking about. It could very well be a project where a council member had a codicil requirement of $20,000 each year for 20, 25 years to the land trust. So I'd be very careful with that and make sure, I'm sure you will do the research. The Atlantic Solar, a one-time fiscal year 19 to 20 of $20,000. I agree with Steve. That doesn't seem right to me. The last thing I want to say, there was a discussion during the budgeting last year, and I know Frank was very adamant. It was a similar position that we're in now, where the funds were not available, and Frank was trying to reduce for several different categories. And as it was tonight, the land trust was very persistent with getting their $15,000. So, but I will. I'm not sure if Marilyn still listened, but I just wanted to point that out about that land trust and the bonds. It's all right there. But you guys have done a great job with this during very difficult times, and I, for one, certainly appreciate it. And as Steve said, when you look at what the previous council did for the budget for the land trust, there was no revenue coming in from solar, and he is absolutely correct. Now that there's revenue coming in from solar, I think it was wise that what you did with the 7,500. I appreciate what the land trust does, but it's at the point now where we need other things. And thanks again for what you
Need
do.
business.
I think that, this is Lisa, I think the ban is correct. I think it's bond anticipation note, if I'm not.
That is correct,
mistaken.
Lisa. That is correct.
right.
That we
Okay.
did previously have a ban, but you can only roll over bans, bond anticipation notes for 3 years. So once you've done it for 3 years, you have to go to bond for that money. So it's an interest only loan. So instead of taking out the $2 million and paying interest on the bond for the whole time that they're spending the money, we tried to save money by just taking out what they needed at the time. So we took out a band. The next time we increased it, and then we rolled it over, and then we rolled it over a third year, and eventually we had to go to bond for that
Oh,
money.
I see. So I learned something else today. The other thing on that land trust line where it says ban, the $12,510, those dollar amounts were not included in the calculations that I did because I wasn't sure what that BAN was. But thanks for the clarification.
Got it. Okay, I think that's gonna bring us to an end tonight. So I thank everyone for their participation and efforts. Obviously, it's a long road, but I think we're all walking it all right. So I will adjourn this meeting, and we'll see each other next Monday.
Oh, what time?
Okay.
Steve? 6? Because you want to come in half an hour earlier.
Good question, Councilor Geary. Lisa, our next meeting is scheduled for 7 on Monday.
It's scheduled, yes, it's scheduled for 7. I don't believe there's an executive session, so I think that's why I suggested perhaps that would be a good time. So you could do that at 6:30 if Brian thinks that would be enough time, or earlier if he needs more time.
I think we could do it in a half hour. But if you wanted to do it at 6, we could recess for 10, 15 minutes if we had time. It's your call. I can make it happen in a half hour if that makes things easier on you guys.
6:30 works for me.
You can do it in a half hour, Brian. 6:30. I'm all for that.
Okay. All right.
Excellent.
Yeah. No
All right,
problem.
everyone. Thank you very much, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Hey, guys.
Thank you. Good night.